Commission meeting for March 26, 2026. We have roll call, please. Here.
Here. Here. Ingalls.
Here.
Jester.
Here.
Lemon. Piera.
Need approval of the February 26, 2026 design review meeting.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
I have a motion. I need a second.
Second.
Okay. I have a motion by Commissioner Lundy, a second by Commissioner Ingalls. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. This time, public comment. Is there anything that anybody wants to talk about that isn't on our agenda? Okay. Staff comments? Pam, do you have
The only
anything?
thing I'd like to announce is tentatively, we would have a design review meeting on June 18th at noon. It would be a week ahead of our typical fourth Thursday. We will keep you posted. If you know you're not going to be available and you could email Tracy, we would appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay. Any commission comments? Okay. Moving on to public hearing. The applicant is the Church of Jesus Christ Latter-day Saints. It is a request for design approval for two religious assembly buildings on 10.912 acres located within the C17 Commercial Zone District. And there's a sign-up sheet that I have, and if anyone didn't sign up yet and they want to speak, if it isn't on the list, I'll get you at the end of the last person that signed up. Tammy, you want to, where'd you go?
Thank you,
What's the
Chairman Messina.
presentation? Thanks.
All right, so I've got a slide here on the screen, which is the public hearing process. Chairman Messina opened the hearing. I'll provide the staff report. The applicant will provide his presentation, and then you can take a look at the staff evaluation of facts, and then public comment time, and this is on design only. We'll be here representing today. So the subject is a request for a meeting with Design Review Commission for the approval of a 29,630 square foot temple and a 17,282 square foot meeting house for religious assembly use on a 10.91 acre parcel. The subject property is described as 10.91 acre parcel located on West Hanley Avenue, bordered by Alecat Road on the west and Coeur Boulevard on the east, legally described as Lot 2, Block 1, full circle tracts according to the plat thereof recorded in Book L of Plats, pages 878 records of Kootenai County. So this is the property location map. This is the subject property outlined in red. Hanley Avenue located here, and this is Coeur Boulevard and Alecat Road. And just to give you a little background, this is residentially zoned, I believe, R17, and further to the west is Hutter Road. And this is a close-up aerial photo of the parcel I just described, so I'll give you a little more background. The project is located right off of West Hanley Road, as I said, bordered by Alecat Road on the west and Coeur Boulevard on the east. There are currently no developments on the parcel or near the parcel. The predominant zoning is residential. The designated zoning on the parcel is C17, which is commercial. The applicant is proposing two religious assemblies. The major structures, Building A is approximately 29,630 square feet, which will be temple and religious assembly use. Incorporated with the overall development is an accessory building, small storage building as well. The accessory building is a 2,000 square foot structure for maintenance and materials storage. Along with the temple, there will be a religious assembly building B, and that would be a 17,282 square foot meeting house. There's also going to be surface parking for the members. Let's see, the proposed temple has 3 stories, 2 above grade, and the exterior cladding is typical stone. And then the religious assembly B for the meeting house will sit south of the temple, and that's a single-story brick masonry. The street access will be along Coeur Boulevard and Alecat Road. A split drive with landscaped island is proposed off of the grand entrance along Coeur Boulevard and Alecat Road. 2 alternate access points are provided on Alecat Road for emergency vehicle access and provide additional traffic options for patrons and visitors. Parking for the religious assembly is based on the seating count. There's a total of 722 seats proposed, and that triggers 73 parking spaces. The applicant has provided 266 parking spaces to serve both the temple and the meeting house. So the decision point, should the Design Review Commission approve the design proposed for the 29,630 square foot temple and a 17,282 square foot meeting house with or without conditions or direct modifications to the design and require a second meeting. So all of the mailing requirements and noticing requirements have been met as noted here in my slide. And I've included a few site photos. This one is the intersection of Hanley and Alecat Drive. This is looking west toward Hutter Road, and this is Hanley. And this is the intersection of Hanley Avenue and Alecat Drive, and this is looking south down Alecat Drive. Looking south at the intersection of Hanley Avenue and Alecat Drive into the 10-acre project site, which is located around this area. And this is looking north toward the intersection of Hanley Avenue from Alecat Drive. So this is directly looking north from the subject property, from the south side of Hanley at the minimal care facility currently under construction. And this is looking north at the residential construction along with the care facility currently being constructed, and this is Hanley Avenue. This is a view of a portion of the subject property along Hanley Trail on the south side of Hanley Avenue, and this is a portion of the subject property. This is looking southwest along Coeur Boulevard at the proposed site for the temple and meeting house location located around here. And this is from the intersection of Hanley Avenue and Hutter Road, west of the project site looking south. And so this is Hutter Road, and this is Hanley Avenue. And this is looking east along the Hanley Trail right here, adjacent to Hanley Avenue. And this is on the south side of Hanley. This is looking southeast along Hanley Avenue Trail toward the subject property on the south side of Hanley Avenue. And this is looking south near the corner of Hanley Avenue and Hutter Road. And this is Hutter. So design review is required to take a look at projects that are larger than 50,000 square feet or located on a 5-acre site or larger. And that's why DRC is reviewing this proposed project. This is a 10.91 acre site. And here are the applicable commercial design guidelines. And you can see I struck out a few of them that would not be applicable in this case. The applicant has addressed all the design guidelines that are required in the C17 commercial zone. And this is a graphic where they have called out how they've addressed some of the objectives in the commercial design guidelines. And this is a 3D rendering that the applicant has submitted. This is a proposed temple and meeting house. This is the temple located here, and the meeting house will be located here to the south. And as I mentioned, there's a 2,000 square foot accessory building. They would not be required to meet the design guidelines because it's accessory to the principal use. And this is another 3D rendering of the proposed temple and meeting house. So you'll see in your staff report there is one requested design departure, which is windows facing the street. And if you look in the guidelines, the intent is to have commercial activities visible from the street. At least 20% of any ground level facade of a commercial building that faces the street shall be windows with clear vision glass on the facade. The required window area shall be located between 2 feet above grade and 10 feet above grade. And
So Tammy, I wonder if we could talk about that. Could I jump in for a second?
Sure.
You know, when this came forward, I think some of us were kind of going, well, this might be an issue here. a departure. I looked at it, and I was around when Mark Hinshaw was here in 2005 and helped us with these commercial design guidelines. The building that we looked at, that kind of was the impetus for this was Kmart, if you can picture that old Kmart in your mind on Nider Avenue. Big box, teeny little, storefront window. You can see nothing in there. So the idea was, hey, let's open things up a little bit. But, the guideline says to have commercial activities visible. And in my mind, I think it would be cleaner for the record. I'm just throwing it out there. Maybe when we get to, making findings and whatnot, it might be cleaner for the record. And I would argue that it's not applicable, not a departure, but it's just like you've struck out other items. I would just take that off the table and say not applicable. And then I say, that we've had other projects here in the C-17 zone, namely residential, that are R-17 buildings. In a C-17 zone, we don't require the window, it's residential. You're not going to have storefront glass, in someone's apartment or whatnot. So we've just categorically taken it off the table. So I throw that out there, we can move on, but maybe just to clean up the record, I would prefer that just for going forward and recognizing what the true intent is here, that it's not a departure, but it's just not applicable.
Thank you for your comments. That's exactly what I'm speaking to in my next slide here.
There you go.
The proposal only seeks a departure for the 20% glazing requirement, and then I added, this is a civic use for religious assembly purposes.
Never mind.
So if you look on design departure criteria, page 17 of your staff report, I think your comments are very valid. So I will go on from there. Now, this is a conceptual site plan. This would be Hanley Avenue. Here is the temple located here, and then the meeting house would be located here. You can see that they've got all the parking surrounding this and the entry that I described, or the area for drop-off here. They have met the buffering requirements. When we get to the landscape plan, you'll be able to see that. But staff did meet with the landscaping team and went over all that information with them and what the requirements were for those buffers. This is an overall site plan again. This is the temple located here and the meeting house here, and they've broke it up into quadrants. You'll see on the next few slides. And there's a portion of the temple, parking, entrance, and then their entrance. This is just an in and an out here. This is the grounds building I discussed. And then the meeting house here. This is general massing conceptual elevations. And this is for the temple and then the meeting house here. And this is the Coeur Boulevard elevation, and then the Hanley Avenue elevation. And this is general massing exterior elevations. And this is a north elevation of the temple, east elevation, south elevation of the temple, and a west elevation. And this is the temple. It's a axonometric southeast. And this is conceptual rendering of the meeting house. And the front elevation, the rear elevation of the meeting house, and then the right and rear elevation. Providing some site material information for wall and cap here. And then the pavers that will be used. And the applicant can provide additional detail on these. And throughout the site, there'll be proposed benches. And this is the proposed trash receptacle and the planters. They are going to install a colonial flag. And then here are the materials for the decorative landscape mulch and gravel. And this is the preliminary landscape plan. As I mentioned, we met with the landscape team and talked about some of our requirements, street trees, buffers. You'll see the note. Enhanced landscape design includes 573 trees and 5,340 shrubs and bushes. The design also includes area for perennials and annuals to highlight the site. They've done a fantastic job with their landscape proposal. So on pages 44 through 46, there's an analysis of the proposed design of the temple and meeting house and the staff evaluation of facts. The applicant has provided how each and every guideline has been met. Decision point, the DRC should grant the application in item DR 326, a request by Colin Hill with JRW and Associates on behalf of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints for the design of a 29,630 square foot temple and a 17,282 square foot meeting house with or without conditions or direct modifications to the project's design and require a second meeting. And there was one condition, which is one of our typical ones. The proposed design shall be substantially similar to the DRC approval of item DR 326. And then your findings and order worksheet are in your packet, and then you'll have to go through A, B, and C once our hearing is near the end to complete this. All right, I'll go. Any questions for staff? All right, the applicant, John.
Sorry, I have one question, Tammy, and it's not part of our purview, but can you remind me what's happening with the trail on Hanley? Is it on the opposite side of the street?
There's one on both sides, I
There's one on
believe.
both
Yeah.
sides, okay, and I saw the pedestrian connectors to
Yeah.
the right-of-way. Okay,
Yep.
thanks.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Tammy.
And if you could just state your name and city you live in for the record, please.
Yes, sir. Johnny Watson, 1152 Bond Avenue, Rexburg, Idaho.
And thank you.
Just would like to say thank you and to Tammy and Tracy for their patience and tutelage to get us through this process. There's been a lot of work on all parties to get to this point. As you know, it's and we just really appreciate being here today. I'm assuming that as commissioners, the reasons you agreed to serve on this board is either you're interested in design, you appreciate good design, you're proud of your community and want to ensure that developments like this enhance your community. And so if you'll be patient with me, I would like to maybe take a little bit of a detour, but not much of one, to show you how serious we have taken this process of your city. When we were asked to propose on an RFP about 18 months ago for this project, the first thing I do when I look at potential projects is I look up the design review required for a city. So Colin and I, for 18 months, have been thinking about this day right here and how to best prepare it. Now, granted, we work with an owner that has some pretty narrow fences that allow us to operate in, if that makes sense. So, like the meeting house you see here, or church, and I apologize if the terminology of temple, meeting house, or whatever are unique, and if I need to clarify on what those are. But basically, the meeting house, and there's a number of them in the community already, is primarily a Sunday use church. Few weeknight meetings, and then temple is a weekday use through the day, and it's more of a worship, but it's also kind of a religious educational experience for patrons. And to your point, there was spaces in there that don't really allow themselves to a lot of fenestration. So, and I can share the floor plans with you. But let's see if I can figure this out. When Colin and I initially looked at it, there's a reason why you have a design guideline in the first place. And so we really looked at these overarching principles and tried to prepare our interpretation of why the intent of or the need that you felt like you needed this in here. And when we first started to kind of explore the appropriate architecture for this project, our entire office, all our architects, we're all graduates from the University of Idaho, so we're all pretty familiar with the architecture of northern Idaho. I've been a resident of the state of Idaho for 60 years now, and my version of native Idahoans, and I apologize, is not the resort that's out here on the lake. It is the miners, the loggers, the farmers. To me, that is the skeletal nature of the people of Idaho. And so we looked back and looked at the region, and we said, what did our forefathers, our ancestors, what did they do? How did they build buildings with maybe even their limited knowledge to, they didn't have Google to look up images, or they did their best to repeat the things that they remembered when they migrated from Europe, right? So and so we looked at a lot of the structures that we felt were had permanence to them. And interestingly, a lot of, and I'm not an architectural purist by any means, but there's quite a bit of maybe a Gothic revival a little bit, maybe, when you look at a lot of the religious structures or the institutional structures. It's not perfect either, because they were relying on memory, not an architectural history class or something. But it was very interesting that the owner allowed us the leeway to come up with the image that's in the center here, because it is a bit of a departure from some of the other facilities you see. And we're awful excited. And this applies clear down to, let's see, there was a couple items in here. The reflect on regional context was to eliminate that anywhere USA look. And so everything about this that we have the opportunity to make decisions towards is based on our design inspirations. Excuse me for a second. And a lot of this won't come into play today, but I think you as a commission will appreciate it as the project progresses. The detailing on the exterior, the motifs that were created are all derived from our interpretations of the environment around here, and hopefully we did a pretty good job of it. Then we hit on the, like Tammy said, we hit on the objectives. Now, I understand it's hard to take those overarching principles. You have to delineate how are we going to enforce those principles, and so that's where we get into the specific items further on down. But I hope as you at least analyze the design, we really feel like everything we have here far exceeds the spirit of what you were trying to achieve. Hopefully you will agree. But we also have identified, kind of the objectives. So this site and getting to the site is an incredible pedestrian experience. And it will be open to the public. When I get to show you the detail, the just immaculate landscaping, the pedestrian areas, the gathering spaces outside for people to, it's intended to be a very reverent site. So we make really good neighbors. And I believe the superintendent in our city council meeting attested to that not only are we quiet, but it provides some other uses for them too. But as we get into this landscape and the detailing of the site, pedestrian experience is actually, it's pretty unique and pretty exciting, I think. So let's just we'll just start going down through here, if you don't mind. And now I have more information, and it's hard to boil down 18 months of work into however much time we have here today. So I might go a little quicker, and I'm more than happy to come back if you have more detailed questions. But our approaches, we've been working with city staff and engineering, so we meet this criteria pretty easily. Yes, well, let me go back to the, oops, sorry. So the, I don't know what I hit there, sorry, Tammy. It's all right. It's all right, we can stay here. Tammy already went over our entrances. We are allowed this is an entrance and an egress, so that allows for, it's still 100 feet apart, but it does comply. And then we've got the two over here on Alcat. And then what I've done over here is I've provided a blow up so that you can see that the pedestrian paths across all the entries are maintained the same plane. The grading as such allows for unimpeded pedestrian movement past the entries. I think I messed the whole thing up. There we go.
Got it?
There we go. All right, sidewalks along the frontages. So if you go out there now, with the development of these three streets, sidewalks have been provided and they will be maintained. as such, or, then you had mentioned the trail along Hanley. Those pictures are a little old, I apologize, because since then they have added the sodding and the street trees along Hanley too, because I chewed my landscape architect out. I says, you got to have street trees over there, and she sent me a picture of the ones that had already been planted, so I was a little out of date. Apologize for that. But we are maintaining that good pedestrian access all the way around the site. Street trees. As Tammy mentioned, so it was kind of interesting, I'll show you our plant list here as we come up. But we thought, we'd done a pretty good job, I thought, of landscaping the area. And if you've ever been to one of these other facilities, there's not a shortage of plants by any means. But we needed to do some fine tuning to meet your ordinance and meet your requirements. And so with the help of Tammy, and what's the urban forest gentleman's?
I believe Monty McCauley.
Monty. So our landscape architects came up and sat down, and they patiently went through each requirement and help us to fine tune that design. And then, so you can see better now the street trees as they are identified, and that's too small to read, but it delineates exactly on Hanley Avenue right now. There are swamp white oak, and there is 16 required. Those are existing. On Coeur, we're required 23, and those are a mixture of black tupelo and emerald sunshine elm. And on Alcat, again, the same mixture. We're required 23 on Coeur and Alcat 17 on Alcat and they're both a mixture of the black tupelo and the emerald sunshine elm. And so that requirement has been met. Then you there's more of a clustering of those trees along all borders rather than just one linear, just like the nice power poles that we have out here along Hanley. So a little nice there. Street trees. Oops, I'm going backwards there. Thank you. Unfortunately, we do not have any grand scale trees. But there's our plant list. And as Tammy said, we have scheduled over 500 trees to be planted on our 10.9 acres. So we may not have grand scale trees now, but we are preparing for grand scale trees for our children and grandchildren to add to your community's urban forestry. The walkways. We've got 2 connections here on Alcat. We have 1 connection here off of Hanley and 1 connection here off of Coeur. The site is very inviting for pedestrian interaction. Now, typically, due to our, fine weather here in Idaho, you don't get a lot of pedestrian, let's say, patrons. Now, nor, much, I guess they do a little bit on Sunday, I just have never been very good at riding a bike on a dress, and so I always drive. But the site is open for the community. So as people are using the Hanley Trail, if they want to come on site and have some personal reflection or meditation or whatever, they are more than welcome and invited to feel the reverence that the site provides. And you can start to see in this image down in here the pedestrian spaces that circle around the temple and the places that you can sit and talk and just enjoy nature, enjoy the architecture. The windows are ordained with very brilliant art glass. So it is a very exciting experience, I believe. This here, let me go to the next slide. So the only residential use that we have here is to the south. And Tammy worked really good with our landscape architects so that they understood the requirements of the number of trees required, the maturity of the trees that needed to be provided, and the widths of the buffers in between the C-17 zone and the residential area. Whoops. Parking lot landscaping. This is where just the time spent with staff was just invaluable for us. Because your ordinance is pretty specific on the percentage of deciduous versus or evergreens versus deciduous, and what kind of function that internal landscaping actually provides. You know, getting the shading, the understory, blocking parking lights from the right-of-way. What is the visibility of parked cars from the right-of-way? And so that time spent allowed us to go back and revise our design. And so there is a pile of sheets here I can run through, but the result of it is just much more detail and much more better use of the plants that we had planned on using to meet those requirements. So, and then our lighting, you know, your requirements are pretty common now in most jurisdictions, that they all are 100% full cutoff, fully shielded, and so we don't. That's easy to comply with and very typical with other jurisdictions. Also, the height of our light poles too are a maximum of, I think they're only 18 feet, but I think you allow 20 or something like that. Maybe it was only 18, but we do comply there also. The screening of service and trash areas. You can kind of see this masonry structure here. So we have a dumpster here, and then there's a service yard here for the grounds people so that they can keep all of their, you know, mowing things, their mulches stuff, the things like that they have. And both of those are screened by the matching masonry, the brick veneer that you see on the meeting house and the grounds building. So it fits in really very nicely architectural wise. There also, there's some soldier courses or brick coursing that to enhance kind of the blank wall of those areas also. Then they are continued also on those enclosures with a decorative concrete cap on the top. Screening of rooftop equipment. This is very, very important to the owner. So the temple is the only one that actually has rooftop equipment, and we go through great lengths to make sure that the parapet heights screen all of that so that none of that is visible. And then the meeting house and the grounds building, neither of those have any kind of rooftop equipment. The condensing units for the meeting house, they sit behind a similar masonry wall that you saw for the dumpster. They sit behind these masonry screen walls on the ground, but then all the furnaces and that are on the interior. Entrance from the street. The temple entrance is visible from Coeur there, and I do have a rendering that's come. I think the rendering that was in the paper also showed that, but it's there. It's a beautiful entry with there's a drop off here and just the pedestrian plaza at the front for photo opportunities or gatherings as people enter and exit. The meeting house, when I initially put this together, I was thinking about the main entrances, which aren't don't face the street, but they do have this gabled portico over them so that they're very visible. But there are actually, I'll get into the site plan, there is actual entrances that face both Coeur and Alicat on both ends of the building. So we do comply, but again, the main entrances are kind of off the side, but they do have architectural elements that make it, you can kind of see here, they're on, this would be on the Alicat end of the meeting house, but still visually, you can only help people so much, but anybody that's seen these meeting houses, the architecture's fairly similar, and it's pretty obvious where the main entry is. And then on the Coeur side, there is an entrance on this side too. But the temple only has one entrance, and that does face Coeur. Here's where I was kind of showing you. Here's the grounds building. It's brick masonry, and it does have the coursing. Even though this is the accessory facility building, this face is still along Alicat, and so it's important to us that it's still visually appealing to the pedestrians or to people in the right of way. And so the brick coursing, the eaves, the roof overhangs, the accent lighting, and that are provided, as well as you can see the landscape buffer to help soften the area also. one of the, well, I'll get back to this. This will come up in the blank wall discussion. There really isn't any blank walls, especially, I mean, maybe the most single plane would be the Alicat side of the meeting house, but there still is pilasters that come out and help break up that, and then you can see this gabled entry, this smaller gabled entry here. The front end of the meeting house, you can see how much undulation, it has, and so it's still, with the relief of the building, it just provides so much shade and shadow and visual interest that would be difficult to say that it'd be just considered a blank wall. Windows facing the street, and I really appreciate the acknowledgement of this isn't a commercial use. Colin and I really tripped on this one at first because in studying your ordinance, the ordinance very clearly distinguishes between commercial, civic, industrial uses, and a religious assembly is listed in the civic use. And so when we initially read it, we just, it doesn't apply. But we don't always interpret your ordinance correctly either, but it seemed fairly clear to us that it didn't. But regardless of that, the architecture and the detail in the architecture, the relief in the building, I think compensates for maybe the lack of fenestration. And I don't know if I have an image in here to show you. These windows are absolutely gorgeous, and it's just hard to put into words to describe the beauty that they have and how they add to those exterior pedestrian place spots. So we feel like we're fine here, and we appreciate you at least commenting that where it's not a commercial use, because it just doesn't fit with the functions in the floor plan. And I kind of, this was really put together more thinking that if the fenestration became more of a hurdle. As you know, in design, and a lot of times in analyzing a design review maybe, or analyzing design elements, oftentimes we have to do it with architectural elevations, which aren't reality. First of all, it's a pure elevation which we never can see. And we were hoping that we could show you that the structure as a volume rather than a printed PDF, flat image, and see the relief in the structure and see how visually interesting the structures are even without the fenestration. This is just kind of back to what we talked about. The meeting house too, you got your main chapel or your main meeting space. It just doesn't lend itself to fenestration very well. But these are just additional images. The overriding, there's kind of a, when you talk about design departures, which we're not asking, but there is some verbiage in there that is very descriptive, I think, that talks about, is the final solution greater than maybe the minimum intent? And we believe that the amount of detail, the amount of landscaping, the amount of public spaces create a development that is going to be not only attractive but admired and appreciated by the entire Coeur d'Alene community. You can see some of the close-up detailing on the temple with the different motifs and the different architectural elements. Granted, they are very similar in color or tone, but I did get, let's see if I can get down, here's a better a rendering to show the shadow and the relief of the different elements, to show the character that are in the wall planes themselves, with the water table and the pilasters or columns at the corners and the detailing around the windows. The motif here that I believe was inspired from the syringa, the state flower, and some of the things somewhere in there. I think they got something, one of the designers, maybe in the window, or the eagle feather. It's not literal by any means, but there is definitely some design inspiration from that. But based on those images there, we felt like the fenestration was a non-issue. Treatment of blank walls. And so that really, this is a continuation of that onto the blank walls. The temple easily far exceeds that. We're limited very much by, the owner builds these things all over the nation and has hundreds of them. And so the more standard they can make them, the easier it is for them to maintain them. But it's still, they still meet the requirements you have, asking for, the base, the belt courses of masonry, overhanging roofs, accent lighting, and things like that. So I think I've hit them all, haven't I, Tammy?
I believe so.
There's some more images in there, but I think I'll save them for if you have any more, maybe more specific questions for me that I could help maybe show how we comply with your items.
Ask a question?
Yeah, go ahead.
It was a little bit hard to tell. Are all the windows in the temple the art glass or stained
Yes.
glass? Okay, thank you.
Got a quick question on lighting. I saw
Yes.
that you had accent lighting and stuff. What is the plan for the tower itself? Is that going to be lit up, or is
Yes,
it going to be a
and so all
beacon at
those
night? given the
those,
fact that there's residential around it and it's
so,
high up there.
right, and so our intent is always to comply with 100% with whatever lighting ordinances you have. All the fixtures, all the fixtures will meet your ordinance, and it is community dependent upon the times of the lighting also. There's some communities that they allow them to be lit 24/7. There's other communities that it shuts off at 11 p.m. or 10 p.m., or lessens at 10 p.m. And so we have the ability to, it has a pretty intense lighting control system in it. And so the lighting systems are able to be modified to whatever the community's lighting standards are.
But again, I guess my question is, the downlighting and the other lighting and landscaping and, the building itself is great. My question is it going to be a lighting that's going to be flooded up? And I'll ask Tammy to kind of weigh in on this. Is it being so that is going to be lit up so that you can see it from a far distance, given the fact that there's residential Coeur development right there, and it's on Hanley and two busy streets? So that's my question, whether it's something in the ordinance for lighting saying we can't do that, or you can do that, but it's got to be softened. It can't just be a beacon at night. So that's my question.
All right, I think that's entirely up to the commission. You'll see in your design guidelines under lighting, it does talk about fixtures, but it's talking about they shall be equipped with the full cutoff, either in external housing or internal optics that directs light downward, and then it talks about the poles. So I think that would be up to the commission if you have a suggested condition to add regarding the light, unless you have anything else to add to how you guys would be designing that and having the lighting set up.
No, it's very typical that there are times, a lot of times, like, for example, the temple in Helena is right in the middle of a housing development. And they have a very rural ordinance, and so it didn't allow for, there was nothing in the ordinance that said the owner had to do X.
Mm-hmm.
But most communities and have a time frame when, hey, people are starting to go to bed at 10 p.m. or 11 p.m. or whatever. We need to reduce lighting or whatever your ordinance allows or suggests.
Okay, well, I guess I'll leave that up to the commission to, at times, the findings to make a statement on
I'd
whether
like
it's...
to add to the comment.
Sure.
I think you've done a very good job with your cutoff on your landscape lighting and your parking lighting, and I appreciate that. Being respectful to the neighborhood around. I don't think it would be out of character to, I don't know if we have an ordinance, Tammy, or if we need to set something up, to say that, yeah, there is a time limit for the uplighting. I have seen other temples uplit, and they are imposing. There's no way to, soften that. They are imposing, and if there was not a time limit on it, that's, like you say, 24/7. So I think it would be in order to say, okay, 10 o'clock at night. That's a fairly reasonable time to say, okay, let's dim things down. And I think that would be respectful of the surrounding neighborhoods.
I think the commission could propose a condition similar to that,
Yep.
and I can run it by Randy, our legal staff, to make sure that it's within the guidelines.
Okay, Mr. Watson, does that sound reasonable to you,
Eric, you good with that?
or whomever?
I guess it's my opportunity to come. So, in general, and as Johnny mentioned.
Why don't you come up to the podium?
Oh, shall we?
Yeah,
Shall we wait until we get to the public comments, and then he can answer that.
Yeah, just hold on.
Yeah, thank
We
you.
can- You can come up as soon
Well,
as,
yeah, he's wanting me to comment on this.
yeah, I understand. So just,
He's my boss, that's why. So, yes, coming to a compromise is reasonable.
okay. All right, if we have no more questions, Wally, we thank you.
And I think it would be appropriate if he's part of the
Sure.
presentation, he can certainly,
Come on up and just state your name and address that one particular item, I guess.
Sorry to put you on the spot.
Okay.
Eric Jameson.
Thank you. And the reason,
Yeah.
the only reason I'm bringing this up, because as Kevin mentioned, I've seen some of your other buildings or other buildings similar, and they look great. Your landscaping, I'll tell you right now, your landscaping plan, the design, the architectural features and things like that, I applaud you on. Since a few of us are on also the Planning and Zoning Commission, so we've been involved in the Coeur development, and besides your commercial spot, maybe one other, everything else is residential, whether it's apartment-type buildings or a single family. So that's the reason I brought up the question.
Sure, understood. I want to just make sure that we are very clear. We want to make sure that we are complying with all of the design requirements as well as any code requirements that are already prescribed for the city of Coeur d'Alene. We don't want to skirt any of those requirements you have, right? We want to comply with all those. What we want to avoid in most instances, or almost in all cases, is a particular stipulation that is provided only to us that is not applied to any other owner in the city.
Mhm.
So if there's an ordinance of saying cutting off any building lighting at 10 p.m., we would expect that to be applied across the board for, and not exclusively just to us. Does that make sense?
I hear what you're saying, and a lot of the times it's case-by-case basis, and we, as a commission, do have the ability to put a condition on particular items based on what they are. And again, I'm not going to repeat myself. My only concern is the,
And I
Yeah,
apologize
blighting of that-
for putting
that-
Eric on, because we work for a huge corporation, right?
Sure.
I feel comfortable in saying that we can agree to a discussion or a compromise, that we're happy with that, so.
And again, I'm going to say, I'm not a lighting expert. We have a
Right.
couple of architects,
Yeah.
designers,
But-
and maybe they can address some of the illuminations and the various illuminations that might be in a range that's acceptable and not so bright that it's a,
Well, not to beat this to death,
yeah.
and I'm sure you're used to being put on the spot, so good for you.
No, it's fine,
But
but
what's unique about the lighting I'm talking about is it's uplighting. And that is unique, and especially when we're talking about a white building, because a white building reflects. And so that does impose itself on the surroundings. The downlighting is cutoff lighting, and so there's not any ordinance or time frame on downlighting that's cutoff lighting, so that's pretty common. But this is specific, and does have an impact on the surroundings. That's why I bring it up.
appreciated and noted.
I have another thing to add too. So I'm familiar with the Helena, Montana location. And it's actually a great case study for this, just because it's surrounded by residential, similar to what the new Coeur d'Alene location will be. And I've heard kind of just in general, the exposure and the lighting in that specific use. What time do you know when that shuts down for them?
I can get that for you, and I apologize on my memory, because I was the person that went to the HOA and we talked about it, and we have a really good relationship there, and we actually asked them, hey, if we're not being good neighbors, let us know, because a lot of times that impact is a subjective, it's very hard to define what that is. Because if you stand there with a light meter at the right of way, you're going to get 0. But you can still see that light, right? But what I do feel, I feel very confident is that the owner is willing to be very reasonable to the uses around and work through any stipulation that you come up with, so.
Yeah, given
And
that-
I go to bed at, I'm an old man, so I go to bed at 8, but I'm up at 4:30. So, I think a reasonable hour, 10:30. The key, really, for the owner, it's at what time are the patrons leaving and can they get leave the site safely? Is that 10 p.m.? Is that 10:30? Is that?
Yeah, and I'm not, again, addressing not the parking lot lights or the down lighting, or
No.
it's just that particular view in that little, in the middle, from the tower up. That's all I am talking about, because of the
Understood.
residential areas around there. And I appreciated that you've talked to the HOA in a different area, similar. I don't know if you've talked to anyone in Coeur, because it's a fairly new project, and I know we approved right around, besides your building, to be there, right around there, there's other taller buildings. It's not an assisted living, but it's a senior project, and then lower buildings for some other homes right next to your property, and you've got great landscaping, you've got plenty of space, so it's not going to be, neighborhood to neighborhood and fence to fence type of thing. It's just that little area right in the center, which is a great design. I'm just curious of it's probably up to the commissioners to decide
I'm
kind
confident
of
we
stuff.
can.
I'm not
can
saying
make
can't
it.
have lighting.
Yeah.
No, definitely would like, and Commissioner Jester said maybe, but I don't know, some sort of shutting it off or dimming it at some point in time. So that's it. We're not trying to restrict you from anything, but just kind of help the neighborhood around.
That's a good question on that.
Go ahead, if you have
Oh,
another
thanks.
question.
Yeah,
of
one
the-
more, maybe it's for staff. In the design review guide, the exterior lighting is, I know it's supposed to be directed downwards and not higher than 18 feet tall, to promote the dark side. So does that mean we're not supposed to be illuminating things over 18 feet tall?
Well, that's speaking to the poles out in
Right,
the
but-
parking lot.
Because you don't normally have a temple tower, but I
Yeah.
mean, in general, we're trying to keep the light at about 18 feet, so we don't have,
Yeah, it says preferable to fewer taller poles and taller poles, so.
because we don't normally have something illuminated.
Yeah, and this is a unique
Yeah.
situation for us as many
So
as I've been on.
I've done a lot of walking around Coeur d'Alene at night because I knew this question would come. And there are a lot of buildings that have exterior lighting well above 18 feet.
Sure, yes.
And a lot of them are down here in the urban areas also, but I'm confident that we can meet your ordinance and provide the illumination that the owner would be happy with also.
Okay. All right. Any other questions? No? All right, I'll open it up to public comment at this time, and you guys will come back to address any other issues that might come up. Thank you. I have Eileen Jensen. Come on. Yeah, you just come on. Just state your name and the city you live in, that's
Okay.
all.
I'm Eileen Jensen from Post Falls, Idaho.
Hey.
And I am in favor of the temple, not only because it will be a closer opportunity for my family to serve, without making the 45-minute drive. But because I know how beautiful the temple grounds are, temples are widely recognized for their carefully maintained, meticulous grounds and the peaceful settings. And this project would absolutely be no different. I mean, it looks twice as much and as I've ever seen before at any temples. And so it's going to create a serene and welcoming environment, not only for those patrons that go inside, but also the community that would be able to benefit from areas to walk and to, travel around with their little families, which hopefully those developments close are creating as family homes. And so the church has a great system in place where they do long-term maintenance of all of their temples. And so I know that it will be a priority of the churches to maintain the highest standards on a regular basis throughout the life of this beautiful temple, ensuring that the property is clean. And this kind of care contributes to the feelings that we have in Coeur d'Alene, our clean, beautiful environment, and I'm absolutely grateful for that. And so I think it would create even more of a serene environment in our neighborhoods. Thank you.
Thank you. I have Amy Ferguson.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Amy Ferguson, and I live in Spirit Lake. I am honored to come before you today as a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints to give public testimony in support of the proposed design of the Coeur d'Alene, Idaho Temple and Meeting House. I am also a retired former employee of the City of Coeur d'Alene, having been privileged to serve for almost 20 years as an executive assistant to the Mayor and Council and City Administrator, including former Deputy City Administrator and now Design Review Commissioner John Ingalls. As an executive assistant, one of my responsibilities was to attend City Council, General Services, and Public Works Committee meetings and other meetings as assigned. I am familiar with the planning process and appreciate your time and commitment to the citizens of Coeur d'Alene in reviewing design proposals and ensuring that projects meet design standards and guidelines. In that regard, I believe that the proposed Coeur d'Alene, Idaho Temple has been designed from the outset to meet all applicable city and county zoning requirements. This includes adherence to regulations around building height, setbacks, parking, landscaping, and traffic flow. The project is not seeking special exceptions or variances, but rather fits within the framework already established by local planning authorities. That alignment reflects a respect for the community's planning process and long-term vision. It demonstrates the desire to be a good partner with the existing structure, not an outlier to it. I therefore respectfully request the Design Review Commission approve the proposed design for the Coeur d'Alene, Idaho Temple and Meeting House. Thank you.
I have Ron Johnson.
So thank you for your service and for this opportunity. My name is Ryan Johnson. I live here in Coeur d'Alene. I'm also a small business owner, a business here in Midtown Coeur d'Alene, and I'm a lay leader of the church. I'm the president of the Coeur d'Alene, Idaho Stake, and as such, I represent thousands of members that are very excited and enthusiastic about the building of this structure. It is a place of worship. It's a place where members of the church make commitments to serve God and to serve others. And as such, it encourages community engagement and goodwill. My understanding is in the process of design and so forth that we've done everything that we can to comply with the framework that has been set up. We haven't asked for any special variances or exceptions. And I hope this is seen as a reflection of our desire to be good neighbors and constructive partners in this community. And so we have a number of members here that are prepared to speak if needed, but I'll have respect for your time. If it's not needed, they'll withhold comment. But it's just want to say on behalf of really 15,000 members in this area, enthusiastically support the building of this structure. Thank you.
And as far as anyone wanting to speak, you're more than welcome to speak, whether you signed up on the sheet prior to you getting here, or if you want to speak before I close public comment, you're more than welcome to come up. Rachel Snow, if I pronounced it right.
Okay, so I live in Coeur d'Alene as well, and I am a mom with 6 pretty active kids that live within walking distance of this temple site. So we walk and bike and run that path often, probably multiple times a week, and we enjoy all the things that Coeur d'Alene has to offer. We are always looking for safe, beautiful places for us as a family to enjoy outside together. And I know that these grounds, as we've discussed, will provide that for not just my family, but the community, my neighbors. And the one thing that I really appreciate is that it's open, it's welcoming. You can walk through here at any time and just enjoy the opportunity to meditate or reflect, and in a safe environment that is very beautiful. And I know that the grounds will be thoughtfully cared for the long term, and it gives me confidence that this will remain a safe and inviting place for years to come, not just for me and those who attend the temple, but for our neighbors, the community members, and many other families like my own. Thank you.
Thank you. Leon Dice?
Leon Deuce.
Deuce.
And I'll hold my comments. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Toby Reynolds? Come on up, Toby.
I don't have anything to add
Oh.
to the discussion either, so thank you.
Okay, great. Tom Pritchett?
I have nothing to add.
Nothing to add? Okay. I believe that's everyone. Anybody else wishes to speak? Okay, if not, I'll bring it back to the applicant if you want to add anything. If not, then I'll close public comment and bring it to the commission.
We'll stand. Thank you.
All right, great, thank you. All right, I'm going to close public comment, bring it to the commission for discussion and hopefully a motion.
A little discussion. I agree with Mr. Jester's comment, that, if there was too much light on white, a big mass of white, that could get a little out of hand maybe, or whatever, if I lived across the street. I get that. And, that said, I'm looking right here, I've got the lighting guideline. It talks about, light poles, and it's kind of focused on sort of the security stuff. What I don't see in here is, I guess, are we calling it accent lighting, where we're accenting the architecture, not lighting to get people safely to their car and so forth. But are we reading into a guideline that doesn't have stuff in there? Because when I switch to the downtown guidelines, these are commercial guidelines that apply across the city. They're the least restrictive of our guidelines compared to Midtown, downtown, east overlay, et cetera. So when you go to the downtown lighting, there's a little bit more meat on the bones, They don't apply. And it says, lighting directed upwards above the horizontal plane is prohibited with the exception of government flags. So, with respect to, if we have, for downtown, uplighting is, restricted, so if I go to the other one and it's not even covered, it's kind of like, is it applying? And I guess I'm, sort of kicking it around here. I'll see what others have to say, but we have to be careful that we're not reading something into a guideline that's pretty limited. So I share the concern. I just don't know where we land on it. I don't know. We have to guard against being heavy-handed as a city and saying, well, you got to turn it off at 8 o'clock at night because you go to bed at 8, or whatever. But I don't know what we do. I guess I'd like to understand a little bit more. Tom, you mentioned the what do you call it, the spire,
Steeple,
steeple, the cupola up there or whatnot. I imagine, some lights. I could see the beautiful windows glowing at night. That's a good thing. But, if there's, 1,000-watt, a zillion watts of light gleaming off these white walls, that could get out of hand. So I'm trying to balance, what does the guideline actually say? And, what do we want? We got to be careful that we don't ask for something that's beyond the guideline.
No, I totally agree, and I didn't bring it up so it'd be such a a discussion of you can't do this or anything. I'm just aware of the neighborhood
Yep.
and what might happen down the road. And as I said, if you did speak to I don't even know if they have a homeowners association, because nothing's been built around there, because those are, I believe, the people that might have a little bit more to say down the road. And that's the reason I brought it up.
So if we call it accent lighting, which is different than downlight or security lighting, I mean,
Yeah.
glowing on the, is that uplit or downlit or what, could I ask?
Typically, it's an uplit because it's easier to hide the fixtures so that you don't get, it can be fully cut off. So really what you're seeing is indirect light, right?
It's reflected.
It's
Yeah.
reflective,
You're washing the wall, you're not
Right.
beaming it at the neighbor's windows.
correct.
Okay, other comments? Go ahead.
Visual noise, so to
And
your
this is
point.
amongst us,
Yeah, okay,
unfortunately
so-
not.
Yeah,
We've
okay.
yeah.
Visual noise though, so going back to your comment about the downlighting requirement, 18 feet, and it being aligned with safety, there is a safety component to that, but primarily the focus is to, my understanding when I read this is that the visual noise aspect, so the neighboring adjacent properties are not being impacted by that light. So the downlighting requirement is eliminating that. So then when we look at, like, this is a very unique condition, and obviously we're having a hard time outlining the exact parameter in our current language, considering that as an uplight, that is against a white building, exterior uplight, that's going to provide visual noise. It's going to have an impact to, it's a beacon to some degree, so that providing the cutoff, like what we heard referenced in Helena, Montana, I understand where that came from, because it's going to impact my personal experience would be that it would impact the neighboring community that's planned for there. So if it was like an internal light rather than an external light, it would be more of a glow. I feel like that might be a different conversation, but being exterior, it's going to have a brighter.
And
More-
do keep
go
in
ahead.
mind, this is a C-17 zone. There is no height limit if they were to build an even taller building and have lighting on it.
Okay.
Well, as you know, as a designer, one of the most difficult things to do is legislate design, because design is subjective. What is beautiful to one person is imposing to another person. And unfortunately, our position as commissioners is to try to find, as best we can, a level playing ground for all those concerned. I would not have brought this up had I not recently been in a community where there was a temple, and I was there at night, and the lights were on, and it was imposing. And I thought, whoa, that's interesting. So that's why I brought it up. And this was in an urban setting. Now, this is in a residential setting, so it's a different circumstance. I'm just asking, let's be reasonable as we consider this for the surrounding that it's in. So that's all I'm asking for.
Okay.
And it might be a time limit, it might be a lumens, but it's, just asking for a reasonable alternative.
Tammy,
Or
let me,
regulation, let's put it that way, a guardrail around it.
let me ask you a question. Depending on who makes the findings and whether there is a condition or not, what would you suggest, given that we're having this discussion, to address any illumination amount, hours of, dimming of, or anything like that? Is there anything that perhaps we can continue, so this process can continue and they can do what they want to do? But again, because I think in other design reviews, we might have had a discussion of, you'll work with staff to work out a fine, defined solution.
I think you could all propose a condition dealing with the lumens and that sort of thing. We could run it by Randy Adams, our city attorney, and because we're somewhat limited, as you've discussed, on our lighting code, just see what his consideration is and if staff could make that call. What else the applicant could provide to staff to be able to give us a little more information on that.
And would that condition, or however the findings are going to be made, would that, because we can also, in our findings, not have a second meeting, or have a second meeting if whoever's going to make the findings is, well, we need to find out what the discussion was at staff, or we can just leave it up to staff to say, okay, staff is satisfied with that discussion with
You could
legal.
definitely do that if you'd like, or we could bring it back to you to discuss that with staff and make a determination with us if it should go back to design review, once we
Okay.
get a little more details about that lighting.
Okay,
Mr. Chairman?
go right ahead.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, I agree with Commissioner Keller. I mean, I think the light from inside reflecting through those beautiful windows would be aesthetically really pleasing to everyone around. Maybe the uplighting could be.
Does work with staff on a solution to soften the impact of architectural uplighting and accent lighting of the building, you know? Get that, Tammy? And that could be
Yep.
duration and/or the intensity, no more than blah, 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 lumens, candle power, blah, blah, you know, whatever. And we trust, we gotta, this isn't, you know, used car dealer building a little deal on the corner with selling cars. I mean, we got a pretty good owner here, you know, so with that high level of trust, I would believe with staff, we just think they're gonna solve it. And if you're not comfortable, staff, you come back and say, well, they decided they wanted, you know, lasers now, you know, or whatever, you know. Are you good with that? You know, and, or maybe not. Some kind of you throw that out.
That sounds good.
Is that something that staff would see workable? How about the applicant? Is that something that
Very much
you
so.
think you guys could?
We'd be more than happy to provide lighting models with staff, you know, work with staff. And we'll bend over backwards to work with staff for
We
the
trust.
agreement of moving things along.
I think we trust you. I think we trust staff. And so with that said, I think if staff just works it out, and they can always bring it back to us if they don't feel, you know, if you don't feel comfortable with the
Well,
outcome.
we're happy to be fortunate enough to have Barbara in our office now. I believe you've met her. She's got the background on lighting, so she should be a great help to us as we go through this project and work with you.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
I just want to echo what Commissioner Engel said, just fantastic landscaping, and kudos to our staff too, and working with you. The black Tupelo, all those are just going to provide so much brilliance in the fall. And the applicant has done an extraordinary job with the aesthetics, in my opinion, with the relief and gone above and beyond, so certainly appreciate that.
And this, again, this is just general comment. Thank you, Johnny, for your presentation. Very professional. For those of you that were involved in it, thank you very much. For those of you in the public that came and spoke, thank you for being bold enough to come and do that. We appreciate that. We like to hear from you. I also want to say I appreciate that you walked around the community, that you familiarized yourself with the community and the uniqueness of the community and the beauty of the community. It's something that we wish to protect, and we wish for generations to come to do that. As I said before, design is subjective, and where you looked at many historic buildings and buildings in the area, what you're proposing here is unique. And I don't think anybody can, dance around that. It's a very large, very white building. You're not going to miss it. And that is not intended to be negative. It's just to say, let's call it what it is. It is going to be outstanding. And I don't mean that in any negative or positive way. It's just going to be there. So I appreciate that you have softened it with excellent landscaping and with the trees that in years to come, the community will greatly appreciate. So thank you for a good submittal. Appreciate it.
And I echo what you just heard. So for me to make a motion to adjourn, I need someone to make findings and go through the findings and whether there's whatever the condition or verbiage for the condition would be, which I agree with Commissioner Ingalls. Let staff work with the applicant, and I know the applicant will work it out, and it'll be great for the neighborhood. So I just need someone. I can't make findings, so I'm waiting for someone else to do it.
Cue up Mr. Ingalls.
I'm happy to. Bear with me. It's a little bit of a template we walk through, and it's a little onerous, and if you want to walk out halfway, it won't offend me at all. This would be a motion for approval with an added condition and without a requirement for further meetings. So that said, that's the punchline, but I have to go through a little template, so.
And before you get started,
Yeah.
if you wouldn't mind pointing out the fact that you would strike out the
Yes.
design departure?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Basically, I will get to that.
Thank you.
Yeah, so just to clean that up on the window issue. So this is a DR 326, a matter that's come before this commission today. Applicant is Colin Hill, J.R.W. and Associates. Property owner is the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. 10.91 acre is, as Tammy laid out and explained. I don't need to go over that in great detail. But we have a number of facts that we base the finding on. So the DRC would find that the following facts, A1 through A26 in our worksheet here, have been established on a more probable than not basis as shown on the record before it and on the testimony presented at the hearing. So I'm going to take a great bit of latitude in summary and say that of our facts, A1 through A10 are really those procedural things, as Tammy mentioned, that notices were given and public testimony was heard, and et cetera, and then from starting with A11 all the way through A26, those are kind of the more substantive findings of fact. The size of the building, the number of square footage, the acreages and the heights of the buildings, et cetera, et cetera. I'm not going to read through it all that. That's not necessary. I would point out that the parking has been exceeded. The driveway approaches is one of the conditions that they meet or exceed. Sidewalks are adequate and on all frontages. Street trees are meet or exceed minimums. We made a finding that, Tammy made a finding that grand scale trees are non-applicable. We talked about parking lot landscaping, way exceeded the minimum there. The lighting, we talked about lighting, which is a finding of fact A20, and that'll lead to a condition later on. But with the exception of, say, the building's accent lighting, which you're going to work with staff later, all the other kind of security lighting, parking lot lighting is downlit with full cutoff, and we appreciate that. We recognize that the entrances are visible. The windows, we talked about the windows are facing the street. With respect, Tammy, to item number 26, item number 26, it talks about the guidelines that don't apply. Grand scale trees, residential parking lot, screening, setbacks adjacent to single family. If we could amend that and just add windows facing the street,
Thank you.
since it is not a commercial activity. Blank walls, that was covered very well, and with all the detailing and the pilasters and plinths and landscaping and shadows and reliefs and detailing out, that's been met. And the screening of trash and, I missed rooftop mechanical, there's no rooftop mechanical. A25, the trash and service areas have been screened, as you've mentioned, with masonry blocks and walls and such. So with all that said, all those facts, the DRC heard testimony from the public and the applicant, and based on the public record, the DRC adopts all the findings of fact, and the DRC concludes that the proposal is in conformance with the applicable design standards with conditions, and the project would not benefit from the second meeting. So with that as a conclusion of law, based on the following findings of fact, the DRC would make the findings of law that the proposal is in conformance with applicable municipal code requirements, and two, the proposal is in conformance with applicable C17 C17L commercial design guidelines and standards that are applicable. So the decision of this motion is that the DRC, pursuant to the foregoing findings of fact and conclusions of law, has determined that the two religious assembly structures with surface parking in the C17 commercial zoning district should be granted design review approval today with two conditions. One, the proposed design shall be substantially similar to that the DRC approves of item DR 3-26, and then they added one, number two. Tammy, I don't know if did you write something there that you could share with us?
I have it briefly, but we also have it recorded.
Okay, but it's been more or less that with respect to any accent lighting of the structure, that you work with staff
On a solution.
to mitigate the impact, be it duration, intensity, et cetera, to staff satisfaction.
And before I ask for a second on that, and I don't know if you want to add to this, John, but add to that, but so that we know what we're talking about. And this is only applicable to the tower lighting of the temple only above the first floor pitch roof. So it's not addressed to the whole building itself. It's kind of just the tower. About that, if that's something you want to.
No, I think we're talking about the whole temple.
Just the not the whole temple. We're just trying to get it to the tower portion, and that's what I said, above the first floor.
No, we're talking the whole building.
Right.
I mean,
Okay, if that's what you're okay. All righty, that's fine.
Because, I mean, if it's overly done, overly intense, even those first lower walls, I mean, if they're still, yeah.
Okay.
I think Mr. Jester's
That's fine.
and
So the condition is.
Commissioner Keller's comments are the whole building, correct? Yeah, that's my thinking too. So,
Okay. All right, so just the whole
All the
building
above,
for
yeah.
clarity then. That's great.
Thank you for that.
No problem. Okay, I have a first by Commissioner Ingalls. I need a second.
I'll second.
I have a second by Commissioner Lundy. If we could have roll call, please.
Jester,
Yes.
Ingalls,
Yes.
Messina,
Yes.
Lundy,
Yes.
Keller.
Yes.
Okay. Motion passes. Thank you. Congratulations. Best of luck.
Thank you.
Yeah, great building.
Need a motion to adjourn?
Well done.
I need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
I have a motion.
Second.
I have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? We are adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you.